And just like that, we're past the All-Star break. Over half the MLB season is already in the books, and it's time to give every single player that's played for the Guardians this year their midseason grades. We're going to go in alphabetical order. Let's start things off with a team grade for the Guardians. I'm giving them an A+. I was one of the most optimistic fans going into the season, and I was called crazy for saying that the Guardians would win the division. I thought they would do that with great pitching and being in a weak division, but that has not been the story at all this year. The bullpen, yes, has been great, but the offense has been way better than I expected. Multiple players have been picking it up, and the Guardians are playing in the AL Central that is one of the strongest divisions in baseball. Quite the twist. I did not see this coming to the extent that it is, and I am very pleased with how the Guardians have been playing so far this year, and I expect them to keep it up going into the second half. Now on to the players, and first up we have Logan T. Allen. Logan Allen is a guy that I expected to have a breakout season this year, or at least be a serviceable starting pitcher. He showed flashes last year, and throughout this half season he's shown flashes as well, especially with his changeup being a strikeout pitch. But command has been a real issue for him. He's been leaving pitches over the plate, and he's walking people too much. He's got 8 wins, but that's on behalf of some unreal run support that he's received. But overall, he's been really disappointing. I'm hesitant to give him an F because he does have 8 wins, and maybe he was doing some magic, so D-. And next up, spoiler alert, this is my least favorite player on the entire list. Gabriel Arias. Yes, he's had a few good games, and yes, he has stepped up kind of, and he's at least attempted to be a super utility guy. But for the majority of the year, he's looked hopeless at the plate, lackadaisical running the bases and in the field, and overall, he's going out there looking like he doesn't have a real plan. Yes, he's played a lot of different positions this year, and that is a hard thing to do. He also has a great arm, but there was a point where people were trying to say he was the best defensive shortstop on the team. Brian Rocchio is way better than him, at least defensively. And the thing is, there are other players who can be super utility guys on this roster, and they are better hitters than Arias. F. Next up, we have our first midseason acquisition, and that is Pedro Avila. And he's had a clear role since his first day on the roster, and that was to be the mop-up guy. And you know what? He's been the definition of serviceable. He's got a WAR hovering right around 0, but no matter what, if he's having a good day or a bad day, he's gonna get you innings, and that's value that does not show up in WAR. Especially with a bullpen that is overtaxed on innings, Avila has been very valuable as an innings eater. He's definitely not your first choice in a close ball game, but there's been stretches where he's been pretty good, so I'm giving him a B. Conveniently, as we move on to the B's, our next player is Scott Barlow. And he's been one of those guys in the bullpen this year. And you kind of know what you're going to get with Barlow at this point in his career. He's got a nasty slide. And he's using that pitch to great success this year. Barlow had kind of a rough start to the season, but he's been pretty good as of late. And if I was Stephen Vogt, I'd feel comfortable putting him into a late game situation. He's not the best reliever in the bullpen, but in my opinion, his grade is heavily tied to is he better than Angel De Los Santos? And this year, that's a yes. B+. Next up, we have Tyler Beede. I honestly had no expectations for him coming into the season. I did not expect him to make the team, but he was pretty good in a low-leverage relief role early on in the season. Unfortunately, it seemed that teams figured him out, and he got roughed up as the season moved on. He was definitely a long shot to be a quality arm, but he brought good vibes and a WWE belt to the locker room, and he seemed to be pretty well liked. So I'm giving him a C. Tanner Bybee has been the ace of an underwhelming staff this year. And on the surface, especially early on, it was looking like he was going through a sophomore slump. But if you really dig deeper into the numbers, he's actually improved in almost every category this year. His strikeout percentage is higher, his walk percentage is lower, and both his expected ERA and expected batting average are both lower than last year. And while last year he was a very balanced pitcher, his fastball has been almost completely ineffective this year, making it that he has to rely on his secondary pitches. Luckily, his breaking ball and off speed are some of the best pitches in baseball this year. Especially as of late, Tanner Bybee has looked like a top tier starter. And from the advanced analytics, I don't think that's gonna change anytime soon. The slow start's gonna dock a few points off his grade, but he's still getting a B+. Oh, Shane Bieber, how I miss you. I'm going to keep this one brief like his 2024 season. He was amazing when he did pitch. I was calling for him to win Cy Young after 2 starts, but it wasn't meant to be. He got hurt, and that's nothing he can control. He even tried to play through it. I'm giving him an A, and I'm hoping the Guardians re-sign him next year. Next up, and we got Will Brennan, and honestly, I thought he was doing a lot better than the stats say this year just off the eye test. And maybe that's because he's got a lot of clutch hits and cool defensive plays. But in all honesty,
He's an average to below average right fielder. And while I do think he has some value as a platoon right fielder and utility outfielder, I definitely think right field is a position the Guardians are going to look to upgrade at the trade deadline. And Will Brennan has just not done enough to lock up a starting position on this team. I'm going to give him a C-. Carlos Carrasco is one of my favorite Indians/Guardians of all time. But unfortunately, it just doesn't look like he has that much left in the tank. He's not the pitcher he once was, and it's pretty obvious. But at the end of the day, he still knows how to get outs. And he's given the Guards a few quality starts, but he's just no longer a starter the Guardians are going to want to look to in a playoff push. I'm not being too harsh towards Cookie because he's trying his best, so I'm giving him a C+. Emmanuel Clase may be the best closer in baseball this year. 0.79 ERA, and his fastball looks better than ever. He's not striking batters out at the highest clip, but he's preventing hard hits, he's getting a lot of ground balls, and most importantly, he's preventing runs. There's not a reliever in the game that I would be more confident in giving the ball right now than Emmanuel Clase. If he could develop a third pitch, he would be deadly, but at this point, he doesn't even need it. I don't think there's a single thing to complain about with Clase's season this far. A+. Xavier Curry has not played a lot this year. He's been up and down at Columbus and Cleveland. But when he's gotten the opportunity, he's been completely average. Most of the opportunities he's had so far have been spot starts, and he's delivering innings in all of those starts, which is exactly what you want. He had one really good start against Boston. All the other ones have not lived up to that pedigree. But at the end of the day, he's playing his role, and that's all you can really ask for him. C is an average grade, and that's what he is going to get. Estevan Florial was an intriguing speed-power combo guy that was picked up in the offseason, but he's kind of proven to be nothing more than a quad A player. And he hasn't even hit well at AAA this year. He really just never looked comfortable at the plate in the major leagues, and honestly, really disappointing. Even though he couldn't hit, he was fast, but he didn't field well either. I was going to give him a straight F, but he did have 2 clutch home runs against the Yankees and 1 against the Astros, so I'm giving him a D-. I was very excited when the choice was made to make Tyler Freeman the opening day center fielder for the Guardians. And you know what? He's been about as average as you can get. He's a very average defender who has a knack for making unspectacular plays look spectacular, and that's really not a good or a bad thing. But the bottom line is he's really not as good as a hitter as you're going to want in an everyday player. Slightly below league average at an 88 OPS plus. He has found an unlikely power stroke, but he still makes a lot of weak contact, so I'm a little confused. Nevertheless, I do think that he is a better utility man than Gabriel Arias. So for that reason, I'm not really going to drag him too much, and he is pretty average after all, so C. Expectations for David Fry were non-existent going into this year, and he's an all-star. You can say what you want about his all-star appearance, but at the end of the day, he is one. He's another utility guy, and he gets on base. And at the end of the day, that's providing a lot of value to this team. He's been slumping lately, and so has the team at large. But he's still going to mash lefties, and that's something that you can rely on. David Fry has been a crucial part to this Guardians team this year, and during his slump, it's been felt more than ever. But I'm not going to focus on the slump giving him his grade. I'm going to focus on the positive, and he's getting an A+. Hunter Gaddis went from a bad starter to one of the best relievers in the MLB this year. And in my opinion, he should have been an all-star. I'm looking at you, Clay Holmes. But he's in the 99th percentile for expected ERA, and his actual ERA is only 1.17. He's keeping batters off balance with his slider, fastball, and changeup, and he seemingly got better as the year went on. In the same vein of David Fry, low expectations but high output, I'm giving him an A+. Andres Jimenez is still a wizard with the glove, one of the best defenders across the league. But he is looked at as one of the cornerstones of this current Guardians team, and expectations are high for him. And it looks like he may be in the midst of one of the worst hitting years of his career so far. There's levels to this though. He's not one of the worst hitters in the league or even on the team, but his power numbers are down, and the contact isn't really making up for that. If the Guardians want to succeed, they're going to need some more offense out of Jimenez, because an OPS in the low 600s just is not cutting it. With that being said, it's hard to be too harsh on him because he is still a very good player, so I'm giving him a C-. Austin Hedges, and he's just here for vibes. Honestly, he's more of a coach at this point. He's still a very good defensive catcher. He doesn't really hit well. He's never really hit well. But what he means to this team cannot be measured by any stats. I'm glad to have him back in Cleveland. So he gets a Hedges. Next up, we got another really good reliever, and that's Sam Hentges. He's battled through some injuries so far this year, but he's still one of the best relievers in the league. His ERA is sitting around 3. His expected ERA is below that. And he's just another guy that Vogt seems very comfortable going to out of the bullpen. He's not having his best year, but he's still a very good reliever, so I'm giving him a B. And then we got the other Sam Hentges, Tim Herron. And he's in the midst of a breakout season this year. He's remained healthy throughout the season and pitched a lot of innings. And he's maintained an ERA of 1.36. He's proven hard to get hits off of, and he's yet another quality arm out of this Guardians bullpen. He wasn't exactly a lockdown reliever last year, so expectations were fairly low. I'm giving him an A+. Spencer Howard was picked up after being DFA'd by the Giants. He made 2 pretty bad appearances for the Guardians and quickly got DFA'd again. But hey, you made more appearances for the Guardians than Tuki Toussaint did. I didn't really see anything from Howard in his 2 appearances. F. I may be biased, but Stephen Kwan may be the greatest baseball player of all time. And I definitely am biased, but he is very, very, very good. He's leading the entire MLB in batting average so far, and his OPS is around 900, a mark that puts him amongst the league's elite power hitters. Steven is obviously known for his contact skills, his savvy base running, and his immaculate fielding ability. But in 2024, Stephen Kwan has found his power stroke too. What can't this man do? I think it goes without saying, but A+. Ramon Laureano is someone that I actually had some pretty high expectations for going into the season, but those expectations were far from being met. Let's start off with the positives. Ramon Laureano has an extremely strong throwing arm. All right, now on to the negatives. He can't hit. He is not a good base runner. He is no longer a good fielder. He constantly took the most dog shit routes to the ball I have seen from anyone in the Guardians outfield this year. And did I mention he can't hit? Don't let his season stats fool you, because it seems like he's turned a corner in Atlanta. Somehow they cheat. This dude was batting 143 with the Guardians. That's an OPS plus of 42. League average is 100. Dude, I don't even know if it's possible, but F-. In spring training, I thought that Ben Lively would maybe be a bullpen arm on the Major League roster, but with Shane Bieber's injury, he's stepped up and become a very solid starting pitcher. The veteran, whose real name is Edward and has spent time in the KBO, has become a workhorse. There's been points where he's looked like the best pitcher on the Guardians staff, but he's not really ace material. And that's not a knock on him, he just doesn't have the stuff to be a 1A starter. But as a depth rotation piece, he's a very capable and very solid starting pitcher. He's keeping batters off balance with a 6-pitch mix and great extension on his delivery. But most importantly, Ben Lively stepped up when the team needed him most, so I'm giving him an A. Kyle Manzardo is the number 2 prospect in the Guardians organization, and he's only had 82 at-bats at the major league level. Obviously not enough of a sample size to make a judgment on his career path, but he got 10 doubles in those 82 at-bats, and he showed a good eye and good plate discipline. I'm not too worried about Manzardo. I do think that he deserves a bigger shot in the major leagues, so let's hope they give that to him. C. Angel Martinez is a prospect that I personally am partial to. I'm willing to admit that. But I don't know. I just think he's really good. Yes, I know it's a small sample size, but he's put the ball in play. He's had good discipline. Like Manzardo, he has a good approach at the plate. Unlike Manzardo, Martinez is seeing immediate results in the major leagues. He seems to be finding himself a role as the everyday center fielder and the 2-hitter, and he's shown a lot of maturity as a young player, knowing his role and having a great approach in each one of his at-bats. He's also an infielder by trade, but hasn't looked out of place in center field, which is good. He has cooled off a little bit, but I'm still very excited to see what he can do next. B+. Darren McCacken had a nightmare appearance for the Guardians against the Blue Jays. He only ended up giving up 2 earned runs, but he could not throw a strike and just looked completely uncomfortable out there on the mound. He followed that up with another horrendous appearance against the Royals. This time he did go 4 innings and gave up 4 earned runs. So maybe he's not the worst pitcher in MLB history, but that's a very low bar. I think that plenty of position players and high school baseball players could have went out there and gotten the same results as him.
F minus, minus.
Tristan McKenzie is a young pitcher with a good reputation, but unfortunately, much like Logan Allen, he's struggled mightily with his control this year. He's recovering from an elbow injury last year. While his velocity and stuff has looked to have rebounded, his control is nowhere to be found. He's walking batters like crazy, and he's leaving pitches in the home run zone. He has shown flashes, but those flashes are few and far between this year. The Guardians just need more out of McKenzie, and that's the bottom line. He's down in AAA right now, and hopefully he can refine some of that control and come roaring back as the Guardians look to make that playoff push. But as far as expectations versus reality, he's missed the mark. I'm going to have to give him an F. It seems like Eli Morgan has been injured the entire season, but when he has pitched, he's been really good and his ERA is below 2. His changeup is one of the best pitches in baseball. You see it right there. And in the Guardians bullpen that has been overtaxed for innings, Morgan could provide some length if he was pitching. Hopefully he can get healthier in the second half, but so far I'm going to give him a B-. Bo Naylor has been a great defensive catcher this year, one of the best in the sport, but the hitting has left some to be desired. With an OPS barely going over 600, he is amongst the league's worst hitters. And I'll give him the break because he is a good defensive catcher. Usually they're not good hitters, but Bo is supposed to be the good hitting catcher. If he can't hit, what is he giving you that Hedges can't? He is young and he does occasionally get on little hot streaks, so I do have hope for him, but overall his performance has left me saying meh. C. Then we got Big Brother Josh, and rather inversely, he's a good hitter, a poor fielder, and a horrible base runner. But his power at the plate is really enough to carry him. He switched up from a contact approach that he had last year and has gone for more power this year and has seen more success as he's become an all-star for the first time. That being said, he's not the most valuable player on the team, but home runs are important, and without Josh Naylor, the Guardians would definitely be a worse team. A couple big slumps that he's gone on this year are going to hurt his grade though, so I'm bumping him down to a B. Big Christmas Junkency Noel. He doesn't make a lot of contact, but when he does, you'll hear it. He hits the ball hard when he does connect, and that's resulted in some big home runs. He does seem to have a chase problem, but this kid's young. He just turned 23, and if he can improve his plate discipline as he gets more ABs, he will be deadly. He looks more major league ready than I expected, and he's looked like a pretty good defender in right field. Overall, he's definitely got places to improve, but I'm giving him a B. Wes Parsons, 4 innings pitched, 5 strikeouts, no earned runs. You really can't ask for more, but the bullpen's just too stacked for him to stay. Unfortunate, but I'll give him an A as a consolation prize. Jose Ramirez is doing Jose Ramirez things. He's proving once again this year that he is one of the most consistent star players in the league, and maybe the best third baseman. He's top 10 in the MLB in home runs, top 20 in stolen bases, and that OPS is sitting in the mid-800s amongst the league's elite. He's still giving you quality defense at third base, and he's a leader in the clubhouse. It's not his career peak year, but I don't know what you could want more from Jose than what he's giving you right now. And it's an A for Jose. Brian Rocchio is like if you took Miles Straw and made him a switch-hitting shortstop. You'd be crazy to question his defense at this point of his career, but the problem is he's not a good hitter. He's struggled at the plate mightily, but even still, he is a better hitter than Miles Straw, so I guess maybe that is an unfair comparison. I do think that Rocchio has a future in the MLB, but I definitely think he needs to improve his hitting if he wants to stay. But as far as this season goes, I'm giving him a C-. Jonathan Rodriguez has earned 2 stints in the major leagues after mashing in AAA, and he really just hasn't produced in his limited opportunity. Yes, it is a small sample size, and his approach looked good while he was here. He just didn't have the results. He's an older rookie, and it already looks like Junkency Noel is beating him at his own game. Unfortunately, I just don't think Jonathan Rodriguez is going to get a shot with the Guardians. I'm giving him a D. Nick Sandlin started out this year looking unhittable, but since his injuries, control has been an issue. But even still, he's been an integral part to a very good Guardians bullpen. If you haven't caught on to the pattern at this point, all the bullpen arms are getting good grades. And at the end of the day, even though Sandlin hasn't been as good since the injury, I would still consider him one of the best relievers in baseball. He lives for high leverage situations, and even sometimes he makes them so he can get out of them himself. B+. Daniel Schneemann was raking in spring training but did not make the major league rosters out of the gate. But with fringe players struggling to hit, Schneemann finally got his opportunity. He's an older rookie, but he came out of the gates scorching, and he's looking like a quality major league hitter. And he's held his own on defense as well, playing a variety of different positions, primarily shortstop. And while he's cooled off at the plate, he's still around an average batter, which when compared with the other options at shortstop is really good. Right now, I think Schneemann may be the best option for the Guardians at shortstop. And given that he was a guy with very low expectations and not a ranked prospect, I think you gotta give him an A+. Rookie Cade Smith was a top 25 prospect in the Guardians organization coming into this year, but expectations weren't overwhelming, which made it very easy for him to surpass expectations, and he's done more than that, becoming one of the best relievers in baseball. Gaddis, Smith, and Clase is one of the best 7, 8, 9 inning reliever combos that you can have. And Cade Smith's electric fastball has led him to great strikeout numbers. He's striking out batters 37% of the time and has an expected ERA in the 99th percentile. That's elite. He's putting up numbers in the advanced stats back it up. A+. Peter Strzelecki is something a little bit like Wes Parsons. Not exactly an advanced stats darling, but in his small sample size, he has not really looked bad. In fact, he only has one blemish, that being a home run. But I mean, you really can't fault a guy too much for making one mistake, so I'm giving him a B. Jose Tena is 0 for 4 this year. I mean, that's about as small of a sample size as you're going to get, so that really doesn't tell you much about his trajectory this year at all. He's been hitting well in AAA, and he's even found a bit of a power stroke down there, which is something that was kind of unforeseen for him. He still projects to be a good fielder, and is still a ranked prospect, and it's only a matter of time until he gets an actual chance in the MLB. But for now, it feels wrong giving him anything but a C. And last but certainly not least, we have the flame-throwing starter, Gavin Williams. He's finally working himself back from a spring training injury that's held him all the way out until this point of the season. He's made 4 starts as of now, and he hasn't looked horrible, but he definitely looks a little rusty. His second and third start against Detroit and Tampa Bay looked good, but his first and fourth start against the White Sox and the Padres were poor. I'm not too worried about Gavin though. It looks like the stuff is there, but he has to get back into the groove of pitching again. But if we're 2-3 starts down the line and it's not looking like he's finding his footing, the red flags are going to start to go up for me. Gavin Williams is a player that could be very important for the Guardians this year and could be the ace. But that ace potential is inconclusive as of yet. So for now, I'm going to have to give him a C and hope it gets better. Thanks for making it to the end of this video. This week has been a little hectic, so it took me a little longer than I expected to make this video. So it's a little bit past midway grades for all the Guardians. But drop a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you want to see more Guardians content. There'll be more on the way.